Order the regular June 2024 meeting of the Longmont Housing and Human Services Advisory Board. It looks like we have a quorum. The first item of business is public to be heard, and I don't see anyone here who's the public, and I don't see anyone on the telephone thing, so we can move on to approving the minutes from our last meeting in May. Does anybody have any amendments, corrections, additions, whatever to the thing? Do I hear
a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A motion.
And the second?
Second.
Okay, next is
we got
on our list is CBDG.
But let's vote first.
Huh?
So you got a motion and a second, but we gotta vote.
Yeah.
So all in favor? We're good? Good. Yes. I think this is Lauren who's gonna be doing the CBDG. Is that right, Lauren? Are you handling that? Okay.
Lauren and Jonna is.
And Donna, okay, alright.
Well, Lauren, I'm just here.
Your first support.
Yes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share the PowerPoint.
And I can tee them off. So as the board remembers from your meeting last month, we had our competitive funding applications. And if you recall, we only had one CDBG application at that time. So staff did decide to reopen the competitive application process for another week. After your board meeting, we republicized it in the newspaper and everything just to see if we could solicit any more projects for CDBG specifically. And LHA did decide to apply for a rehab project and wanted to bring that presentation back to you. So you have a chance to hear it and ask questions, and then that will tie into the overall funding recommendations discussion. So I'll hand it over to Lauren and Jonna to talk about their application.
Share my screen. So there's share screen right in the middle. Share. Can you see that? Can presentation. I'm just gonna just click. Oh, okay. Okay, Lauren, can you see the screen?
Yep, I'm good.
All right.
So, hi, everybody. I am Lauren Selly. I am the Assistant Director for Longmont Housing Authority. I have been in this role for, I think, just shy of or just over 3 months. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, so I'm not even sure how long it's been. And we are making this request for CDBG funds for replacement of apartment doors and hardware at the Suites apartments. And the project timeline for this is summer and fall of 2024. For project history, the Suites was originally a hotel that was converted to apartment housing. It has 81 fully furnished 1, 2, and studio bedroom apartment homes. It was purchased in 2011 by Longmont Housing Authority for permanently supportive housing to help meet basic needs and maintain independence for people exiting homelessness. And the Suites had a renovation in 2017 for certain improvements to the property. I think it was mostly mechanical, but I wasn't here, so I'm not 100% sure. And trauma-informed design techniques were not used in either the conversion to apartment housing or in 2017 when work was done. And if you're not familiar with trauma-informed design, this is a concept that really takes into consideration how our surroundings can, how we interact with our surroundings, including things like architecture and buildings, how they're designed and built, and how it can influence people's experiences in life, specifically people who have experienced trauma. And so you can see here we have some photos that I've taken from a study that was done by a group here in Denver. And then this framework in the middle is done by a group, including ShopWorks, Architecture, who is well known in Colorado and nationwide for their contributions to trauma-informed design. The idea is, without an understanding of trauma, we may design buildings that perpetuate and cause trauma. These triggers can include disruptive sounds, unpleasant scents, lack of security for their self or belongings, visual noise, uncomfortable sensations, and institutional materials. And if you think about people who have been living on the street or who have been unhoused for a long period of time, transitioning into housing can be overwhelming and triggering. It can cause further trauma, and it's something that takes getting used to, which is why in this framework of permanently supportive housing, we pair support services with the housing so that people can be successful in staying housed. What we are experiencing currently at the suites is an issue with our doors. As you can see in the photo at the top, the middle top, there's an inch gap underneath the doors, and this is every apartment, every office door. Because this was originally a hotel, that was a requirement back when it was built. These gaps can allow light, noise, and smells to enter or leave units. It creates issues for some of our residents who are already, they can be paranoid, they might be fearful, they might not want to hear all the noise in the hallway or smell other people's cooking, and it can be triggering for them. Another issue that we experience with these doors is that because they are hotel doors, they automatically lock when you leave the room, like a hotel. So if a resident steps out of their unit and they don't have their keys with them, they have no way of getting back in. There's no deadbolt like you would have on a normal door, and then a door handle. So this causes an issue for them because then they have to call our maintenance team, and if it's after hours, we have to have our on-call show up from home all hours of the night, and they incur a $25 fee. For some of these residents, they don't have income or they have extremely low income, so a $25 fee is a burden for them. It also causes the time and financial hardship for LHA because we're having to pay our staff overtime in some cases to come and respond to these calls. There's also another issue at the suites where we have a rumored history of former residents or LHA employees retaining what we call master keys, which is a key that would open any door within the project. This is an unsubstantiated claim. However, it's really hard to convince people, especially at this population that we have at the suites, that nobody has access to their apartments. I think at one point, someone might have had a key to address the issue of lockouts long before the city took over. And because there's rumors that happened, people cannot let go of this idea that their belongings and their apartment is not safe, that they are not safe. The other thing that we're facing is that our replacement reserves have already been earmarked to improve and repair one of our elevators that has been down for over a year. And so all of that money has been spoken for, and that work is getting ready to start. And we have no funding available within the suites budget at this time, given all of the issues that we've had around meth remediation and other improvements that we've had to make. We did receive a cost estimate in 2023 when we started talking about this project and seeing what it would cost if it would be a possibility. So this quote is from September of last year. It's almost a year old. And so we expect some escalation of costs given inflation and just what's been happening in the construction world and the need for a contingency fund. So we've requested $200,000 of CDBG funds with this quote of $150,000. We're hoping that we can get the work done within that amount, but any unspent funds would be returned to the program. So that is what we're facing. I'm hoping that by spending this money for this purpose, we can help our residents feel safe, empowered, give them some dignity in their housing, and really show them how much we care about not only the property, but how they feel in the property, because it's important that as our residents and some of our more vulnerable populations that they feel safe. So I welcome any questions that you might have. And I have Jonna here. She is the community manager for the suites to provide additional backup and just nuance to it, because she's there every day with our folks at the suites.
I had a question on the hardware.
Sure.
I know you're changing it. You putting just a one key lock in there, or you putting also a deadbolt, or? are you-
Probably a deadbolt, and then Jonna has seen at other properties, and we've discussed a key option that can be rekeyed. And it would still, we would still have the ability to enter the units as the property manager and owner, but it would eliminate the idea that anyone has one key and get away from that rumor, and also just make it easier for people to leave their unit. If they're not locking the deadbolt, they can't lock themselves out. But yeah, we would replace all the hardware to a traditional system like on any other apartment.
Yeah, it looks like there's more security there.
Mhm.
So I think people would be more safer. with the
Yeah.
deadbolt too, yeah.
I very much approve of repairing and remodeling and upgrading affordable housing we already own, as opposed to building new stuff, because if we don't maintain our old stuff, we're gonna lose it. So I think it's a very valuable thing to make these changes and locks and doors and things like that, painting. It's a good use of the money.
Is changing the door alone gonna be able to solve this disruptive sound and scent and all the things that you described?
So it will help with that large of a gap under the doors. It's pretty noisy, and we have some noisy residents. We also have animals that go up and down the hall with the residents. We can't put like a sweep or a weather strip underneath the doors because of the fire code and building code. We're not allowed to do that. So bringing the doors all the way down like any other traditional apartment would eliminate quite a bit of noise.
And panic. I have a lot of residents that they burn their toast, burn their food, and the smoke comes out in the hallway and everybody panics. That the building is on fire, so I have to go knock on doors till I find out who's burning the food and make sure everybody's okay, cause it's sheer panic.
I have a question for Alberto. When does this funding have to be used by?
Can't answer that
Okay.
question.
Molly and Christine.
Great question. So, one of the reasons that staff is recommending funding of this project is that it does contribute to our timeliness. So we have rules, because this is money from HUD, that we have to spend a certain percentage of our annual allocation by October. And so because this is kind of a one and done, quick, not even full construction, really just replacement of doors and hardwares project, LHA is confident that they would be able to order the materials and get that work going before October to help us meet those HUD deadlines. And timeliness was a concern that we had with the previously submitted CDBG application for the daycare support. So from that perspective, this project would be spending the funds quickly, which is good administratively.
And can you remind me how much this will cost?
We've requested 200,000 for the CDBG funds. We have the quote from last year was around 150,000. So we expect, with cost escalations and a little bit of contingency fund, because we don't know what we'll run into, that we will probably use the full 200,000. But if we don't, we would return whatever's unspent.
And how much funds do we have remaining to use for CBGD?
So, and I'll talk about that when we show the updated spreadsheet, but we decided to put a little bit more into our bucket for our single family and owner occupied rehab program compared to the version of the budget I showed you at the last meeting. So that leaves us with about 200,000 for competitive award. And as Lauren said, anything that is unspent would go back into the program.
And so with this funding, it would have to be, how does that work? Do they have to return receipts by that October deadline? Like it has to be spent and receipts need to be shown. How does that work as far as the turnaround? Can you explain a little bit about that? Or do we just need someone to claim it?
So as they would, assuming this project's funded, they would hire a contractor who would order the doors, order the hardware. They would present us with the invoices from the ordering of that material and the material cost. And then the other piece would be the labor of actually doing the work to change out the doors. And so any money that's spent on any of our awarded projects, we review invoices as staff. We have to approve them, and then our finance staff has to approve them.
Thank you.
This might be more of a technical question, but do you have like plans for what you're gonna do with the old doors?
No, that's a great question, because we do think about, in construction and development, we think about how we use the waste. Because these doors they're not your typical size door for a home. They are a bit wider. I'm not sure what we would do, but we would work with our contractor to make sure that the disposal of the doors would hopefully be in line with some sort of recycling or reuse purpose. That's something I always like to see in any project that we do. But that is a great question. I don't know what we would do with them because they're not a standard size. I don't know that they would immediately be available for reuse somewhere else.
I was just curious, cause like, I don't know,
It's a lot of doors.
Girl Scouts might take them, or they could be garden boxes somewhere, or I don't know. I think about like, could materials be used in a different way? And then did you guys do pricing and stuff between like a key change or like a dorm style with a code kind of difference?
Doors that have codes or like a keyless entry, like a fob system, are quite expensive. I think if we were going to do some sort of fob system, it would add an additional $40,000 to the project. It's something we can look into when we go out to RFP. We can ask for alternates on the pricing to see if it's within the scope. But I would expect that it would increase the price.
I was just curious.
I'll just add one thing from trauma informed design. We do have key fobs there. I know there are key fobs at the entrances of all of the LHA buildings, but not at units, and specifically in permanent supportive housing. Electronic systems for security on their personal unit is another source of concern that can trigger mental health concerns. We've heard complaints about even about them being on the master doors. I know that LHA staff gets complaints that you're listening in on me, or you have, the computers are giving you access to my apartment. There's a lot of
Distrust.
yes, thank you. I know that.
So are we ready to vote?
Well, let's
Yeah.
let's hold off and
Oh,
because I'll give kind of a quick summary of the whole funding picture now. But does everyone have any more questions for Lauren and Jonna?
And Lauren and Jonna, it's obviously a public meeting. You can stay, but also you don't have to either.
Well then, thank you for that presentation, and I'll kind of move into a quick summary of now that we have this was the last application with everything that we heard from last month, and so we'll kind of go through our staff recommendations. Before we did that, I did want to introduce the board. We have a new team member on the HCI team, Alexis, and if the board remembers Adam Sanderson, Alexis has replaced Adam in that position, and she will be really taking the lead on the CDBG projects, and I'll have her introduce herself to you all really quickly. She just started this week on Monday.
Hello, everyone. As Christy said, my name is Alexis McCowan, and I'm very honored to be here with you all today. Before joining the City of Longmont, I worked with the Keystone Policy Center for 2 years, primarily on tribal and indigenous engagement, and then a couple of months with the state doing preservation engagement. So really happy to be here and really excited and energized to lend lots of value to the City of Longmont. So thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Congrats, Molly, for. Are you police staff now?
One more to go.
One more, okay.
One more.
One more.
Close.
Close, we're getting there.
We're close. Yeah,
Well,
we're
the
very
motion-
excited. We're very
No,
excited to have Alexis though.
Chris is gonna share one more thing, and then we can do.
Yeah, so I will just quickly share my screen and I don't want to take too much time because we did quite a thorough review last month and I know that the human services staff is owed time to talk about their funding. So I just want to go through this. Can you all see my spreadsheet here?
Just very tiny.
Yeah, I don't know if I can see it.
Actually, hold on, sorry. Let me pull up the Excel. That might be easier to zoom in. So as you saw in your packet, I updated the packet a little bit from last month. It's based on last month, but with some more detail and updated numbers for our funding recommendations. Is that easier to see? Okay. So I just wanted to point out a couple things that are different on this version compared to last month. One is that we added the home ARP column. So if you recall, last year was our turn for home dollars. These are federal dollars from HUD that we get every few years. We go in a cycle with Boulder, Broomfield, and Boulder County. And so these were projects that we decided, and you all probably decided upon last year, but we have to actually write the contracts for this year. So I added that home ARP column just so you can track. We're still waiting to hear from City of Boulder about what our exact admin allocation is. So that's why that is a missing number. But we have 3 projects for home, a scattered sites project for Boulder Shelter, the in-between Wesley Townhomes, and then a Habitat for Humanity project. So this column was new. And then I also wanted to mention that our total amount for available funding for competitive award out of the Affordable Housing Fund has increased by $15,000 in this version of the spreadsheet. And that is because I realized that we had been counting a line item for Neighborly software, which is the grant application software that we use out of this, when actually that is taken out of a admin bucket. So I was double counting that software amount. So we have $15,000 more to award than we thought, which is great news. So staff took your discussion from your deliberation last month. We did some follow-up with the various applicants that applied, got some more information, got some questions answered. Really looked at our numbers to see what we could fund out, and we got to our funding recommendation that we're presenting to you today for your vote. The more details are in your memo of all the different projects, but in summary, we are recommending full funding of Affordable Housing Fund award for Thistle's Cannery land acquisition project. That was to purchase a piece of land next to their existing low-income housing tax credit apartment project and develop 40 some new units and also rehabilitate the 90 some units that are in the cannery. Habitat for Humanity of the St. Vrain applied for 2 land acquisition projects, if you recall. Oh, sorry, was there a question?
No, sorry, I just copying.
Oh, no problem. So Habitat came in for those 2 projects, as you remember, and we just don't have the money available for competitive award to fund them both. And so they were pretty straightforward about which one is further along and which one is their priority. And that is the Faith Point Church one. So we're recommending a little over 1.2 million to help towards that land acquisition. In between came in for land banking money as well. They didn't have a specific property in mind, but really wanted to apply for seed money so that they can go out and start looking at properties for purchase to develop 20-ish units of their kind of 40% AMI sweet spot transitional housing that they specialize in. Boulder County Housing Authority applied for rehabilitation of their Casa de la Esperanza farm worker housing project. This was one of the ones that we did some back and forth with BCHA to get some questions answered after your meeting. And staff is putting forth a partial funding of $500,000. They asked for $600,000. And then the in-between final gap funding to hopefully close their total funding needs and get them to construction later this summer. That was that $350,000 request. We're recommending full funding of that. And then we have in CDBG land, the Longmont Housing Authority Suites project, which you just heard about, requesting $200,000. And again, for staff's evaluation, this project really contributes to timeliness, which helps us with our reporting to HUD. And also administratively, it's much easier to manage this kind of one and done minor construction project, as opposed to the other CDBG application that we had, which was upwards. We are not recommending funding for at this time, and that's for a few reasons. One, back to timeliness, they wouldn't really start spending money in earnest until later this year and even into early next year. So it would take a while to really get those dollars out the door. Also, we connected with Human Services and Children, Youth, and Family staff, and there is concern that this program is potentially kind of duplicative of some local efforts, and we need to make sure that we're not funding an outside kind of national model that might be taking away resources from things happening locally. Also, their proposal is to fund staff positions, which is administratively much more difficult for us to process compared to a construction type project. We'd be having to look at their timesheets like every couple weeks, and just the HUD rules of how to process positions through CDBG is just much more onerous than a physical kind of construction project. So, and then lastly, this model is still really new. They're only in their second program year, this company, and it's yet to be tested in Colorado. They are operating in a few other states, but staff felt like we'd like to see a little bit more proof of this model in more communities, and then ideally in a Colorado community to see that it works for our area before we would consider funding. So those are just kind of the summary of where we got to with our recommendations. And then lastly, Boulder County Personal Finance, $100,000. And just a note on this one, we include it in the competitive award, but several of our own programs, like our down payment assistance program, do require that we send our clients through this program. So we're kind of obligated to fund them, at least to some extent, but they're listed here with everyone else. So that's the summary. And then with what the numbers that staff has proposed, this leaves us with a little cushion of about $1,600 to our max of what we can award out for our affordable housing fund. And then this would use up with the LHA project pretty much what we have for CDBG. And then our remainder CDBG allocation would go into our owner occupied rehab program, which that number can kind of fluctuate depending on how many people we serve. So.
And Christy, I wanted to add on
Go
to
ahead.
that piece real quick. In the past, when we didn't get enough applications to fill our CDBG funds, that is kind of our catch-all bucket. And if that is too big of a program for us to handle in a year, or if our priorities for rehab are moving in different directions, then what we would plan to do is put out another competitive application award later in the year to bring in some more projects.
Yeah, good point.
Have
Thank
that
you.
something assigned for the action plan, so that's where it ends up going.
So we feel confident in these recommendations. We really tried to take all of your good discussion and deliberation and questions from the last meeting to inform our recommendations. And then we are requesting a vote tonight, and then that we will take to City Council on June 25th, and City Council will have our final vote and approval on our funding recommendations. And then after that, we will submit our funding plan to HUD for the federal money on the CDBG side, and start getting grant and loan agreements out to folks to get projects going, which is exciting.
You have any questions?
I have a question. So you moved some of the funding into the rehab program. Was that from the CBGD fund?
So the rehab program is already funded by CDBG. It's just a matter of kind of like Molly was saying, any funds that we don't put towards a specific project, we will try to spend through the rehab program. And if we are having an excess of funds that we can't spend through the rehab program, we always have the option to open up for a later competitive cycle later in the year. But the rehab program is always funded out of CDBG and traditionally has done about 100,000, 150. So right now we have, I think, 173 earmarked, just to get to kind of that round number of the whole allocation.
And so would you be able to, if there was leftover funding, would you be able to move it all over to the rehab program?
Meaning if, like, say if we move forward with awarding LHA and the cost of their project is less than 200,000 and there's some left over, could we use that for our rehab program? Is that what you're asking? Yes.
So. 260,000.
And is the rehab program the only program that we could use that CBGD funding toward within the city of Longmont?
So the other option would be, as Molly said, we would reopen another competitive award process. The rehab program is the only program currently in our office that utilizes CDBG on an ongoing basis. Otherwise, traditionally we have the rehab program that kind of goes every year, and then we also do these competitive projects with the rest. So any money that we have left over would either go into rehab, or if there's enough of it to make it worth opening up another call for projects later this year.
Thank you.
Yep, good questions.
Any more questions?
I was looking at the Casa de la Esperanza. You're gonna upgrade it. And then some of the families are gonna have to move out. I mean, can't live there. So did you have places for them to stay while there was remodeling then?
Are you talking about how tenants would be relocated during remodel?
Yes.
So when my understanding is that folks would not have to move out based on the extent of the remodeling that they want to do. Some of the main in-unit things that BCHA is wanting to do is add in-unit washers and dryers, which don't currently exist, and also add air conditioning. And those would be work in the units, but they don't expect that folks would actually have to move all of their things out and move back in. The workers should be able to do the work with the folks in there. And then the other items for the property, there's a lot of external accessibility issues that need to be fixed, like the parking lot and entrance areas to all the building currently don't meet ADA So like resurfacing and regrading and all the sidewalks, and then also replacing the playground area is another part of their scope. So with what they've presented right now, folks shouldn't have to fully move out during the renovation. They actually had a community meeting last week. I know the BCHA folks told me to meet with the Casa residents and start talking about this project, and the folks that live there are very, very excited about in-unit washer and dryer. So they did pass that on to me, which is understandable.
Makes sense in the budget.
Now I think if there's no more questions, now we can ask for.
A motion to approve. Have a second.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor, raise your hand.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Oh, now we
every.
have to vote. Yeah, there is, if those not in favor, you can raise your hand, or if you want to abstain, you can raise your hand. Yes, abstaining or not in favor?
Not in favor.
All right, there we go. It's fine. The motion passes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all for your time.
Thank you. And as I said, really appreciate everyone's thoughtful questions, considerations through this process, and we will be taking this to City Council on June 25th for their final vote. So you all are welcome to attend that meeting as well. But I will hand it off to the next part of the agenda now. Thanks again.
Well, thank you all for the vote. Thank you, HCI staff, for presenting.
Thanks, you guys. Thank
Thank you all.
All right, so now the next part I want to take, Robert, because I am, one of the things that the board has asked for in the past is for, you know, as we get ready to review our human services funding, we do, every summer, we try and do as many trainings as we can. One of the trainings that the board asked for last year was logic models, and so I've created a very, you know, hopefully useful, not too overburdensome, but at the same time, giving you the tools you need. Some of you, I don't know how many of you are already very aware of logic models and work with them, how many are you don't, and so I wanted to give you a basic but yet useful and enough information to understand how, because this is what you all really, and at the end of the video, I'll show you where you all, when you are reviewing your applications and evaluating, I'll show you the 2 questions that fall under logic models in the evaluation. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and walk you through this presentation. All right, let's see, okay, so. Here we go. So what is a logic model? So fundamentally, a logic model is a graphic illustration of the relationship of how a program's resources and activities impact what it wants to actually happen, right? Most of these graphics that I got University of Madison as a good online course around logic models. I took a lot of that from them. I took a lot from other places, but it's just really what do you put into something? What kind of inputs do you put? What are the things that you do? Those are your outputs, your activities, and who you do it with are your participants or your clients or whoever, and then what happens? More complicated logic models really look into assumptions and external factors, but we're not asking that in our application. We don't ask agencies to go into like these really complicated logic models. We're asking for pretty basic stuff for them to give us. And so we're gonna cover that tonight. And if anybody has any questions as I go along, go ahead and stop me. So again, it's just a logic model. If we used to ask for an actual logic model, but in our new application, we created a scope of work, and that's how they've taken the graphic version and made it more into a drop-down type of easier for agencies to fill out. So when we talk about inputs, we really wanna know, and you'll see this in the application, we really wanna know. Who are people working with, and input is, what are you putting into the program or to the activity, so we're asking who, you know. What partners does the program have to work with to be successful? The staff that you need to get something done, what funding do you need to get it done? The timeline, how long is it gonna take to get it done? What kind of materials, it's not an all exhaustive. But we, in the application, we really do ask about who are you working with, we really focus on partnerships. Part of that is there's been a long commitment, from even when I was applying to this grant, I applied to this grant for many years. The city of Longmont, Boulder County, and city of Boulder has had a long commitment to collaboration in the community. How are nonprofits working together? And so they've always asked us as nonprofits, how are you working with other nonprofits? How are you ensuring that you are enhancing services and not just duplicating services, right? And so that's been a big part of, you'll see that in the application when they ask, who are your partners? Who are you working with? But those are inputs, those are what goes into the program to do something. And what you do is your outputs, right? So it's really the actions that you do, the services you provide, so you can conduct workshops, you can have meetings, you can provide case management. You can do resource navigation, you can provide mental health sessions or services. Those are all, you can provide legal representation, those are all your outputs. Right, what is it that you are what is it that you're doing, what are we as a board, as a city helping fund, what are the activities that you are working on? And then who is benefiting it from, and you'll see that we always ask in the application, give us your demographics of who you expect to work with, right? We wanna know, is it mainly low income, is it not low income? We've had agencies that have really good ideas, but their primary target aren't really low income residents, and so or it doesn't really fit who we're trying to help, right? So this funding is really meant to help low income Longmont residents, right? And so we wanna know who their participants, who their clients are. And we wanna know what they're trying to do. So then the outcomes are, what has changed? Now, in the past, Boulder County and us and City of Boulder, and in fact, Flickers Way was a part of this one, they made us do the whole short term, medium term, and long term, right? Because we only contract for a year, that's very hard of us to ask for an agency, right? Because some programs take a lot longer than 1 year so you can see long-term outcomes. So we typically stick to either, short-term outcomes or medium-term outcomes, right? So I'll give you typically those are things like somebody provides we provide case management, and as part of that case management, families meet certain goals that they have, whether it be saving, whether it be, so that's the outcome, right? The activity is I'm providing the case management. The outcome is families meet goals that they set, and those goals could be anything that the family sets. Everything from increasing their education, it could be increasing savings, it could be whatever. We're not the judges of that, because it's really up to the families. But we wanna know that we wanna know what outcomes that your activity of providing case management is, right? So we just wanna make sure that is something that you're listing in your in the application. So how does that look? How do we know that? Well, you provide us indicators, right? You tell us, you give us a number. When I'm doing my scopes of work, and sometimes, Brenda knows this, sometimes it's a back and forth between me and the agency, right? Because not all agencies or not all development directors understand what indicators are. And so it's sometimes a back and forth. So for example, going back to that case management example. My output is I'm providing case management with 2 case managers in the city of Longmont. Okay, let's say that. I have 2 case managers, I'm working with 15 families in the city of Longmont. Okay. My outcomes is the families are gonna accomplish goals. Okay, we're, as a case manager, I'm gonna help them set the goals and I'm gonna help them work on the goals, keep progress, encourage, reroute, whatever I gotta do as a case manager to help them make their goals, right? They get to set the goals, my job is to help them get there. Right? The indicator is really, it can be in that you can do all sorts of things, right? When I ran a program, I had very specific indicators because I had very specific outcomes that I was going after. So for example, one of my indicators was increase in saving amounts. Literally every 6 months, I would ask a family, hey, how much, you know, this is when you started the program, you had $150 in savings, where are you now? And I did that for 18 months, because my program lasted 18 months. So every 6 months, so 3 times since they started, I would ask, you know, how much do you have now? And then I would report that, right? That's a very specific indicator. Because we only contract for 1 year, typically what we ask is for like a case management, we would say a good outcome would be family had 10 goals and they accomplished 80% of them. Right, so I'm not gonna ask for specifics, I just want to know that that families will accomplish at least 80% of their goals. And the indicator is the percent of how many goals they did. Sometimes, for example, with our legal folks, they struggle a lot with that. Because as anybody knows, with the legal system, court cases can take not just 1 year, not just 2 years, but it can take even longer sometimes. And so they're working with, and so one of the challenges we've had with some of those folks who are doing the scopes is say, well, maybe what we'll do is how much money we will save people because we charge less. I said, all right, that's fine, your output is reduced cost legal representation. Your participants are the clients, and the outcome is that each client that comes will save, you know, in comparison to a regular attorney, they'll save $1,000 or whatever. It's always a little bit challenging with legal, same thing with health. I've noticed that health, because again, chronic diseases aren't 1 year things, right? We wish they would be. But we'll do stuff like, you know, people will maintain their BMI, or they will, you know, 80% of our clients will be referred and actually go to the specialist. Sometimes the activity is do a screening and make a referral, and the outcome is they actually go to the referral. So this is one of the things that I always struggle with. We have several agencies that do what's called INR, or information and referrals. I tell them, you doing a referral is not an outcome, okay? That's part of the output. You closing the loop and making sure they actually did the referral you did or completed, that is an outcome. You can't control what happens after they go to the doctor, but if your referral got them to the doctor and they actually went to the doctor, that's an outcome. And the indicator is that they actually went to the doctor. They actually completed the referral. So as you are reading the applications, when you get to this section, here's what it looks like. This is just the first part. I didn't copy all of it, but you will see some of the same things, right? So we got, here's activities and outputs are the, you know, what are the things you're doing, how many of those things are doing, timelines, partners, and outcomes and measurement tools. What are they using? Is it survey? Is it, you know, is it an assessment? So a lot of our mental health folks have assessments that they use because they're nationally recognized assessments. Like for example, Rise Against Suicide uses a nationally recognized suicidal ideation assessment, right? And so they report, that's their measurement tool, and then they'll tell us 75% of our of kids that come through our program will have reduced their suicidal ideation score. You know, that's an outcome, right? Because they went, they took the assessment, then they had their sessions, and then they reduced their score of suicidal ideation. Okay, so you're gonna see this in your application, and and where you see it, there's two questions that you all have to answer or score. I did the little funny faces stuff, but imagine that was 1 through 5, right? We don't do the little smiley faces, but imagine that that's 1 through 5. So does the logic model establish meaningful outcomes? We wanna know, as you look at the outcomes in your mind, and this is where, you know, we talk about, we had this conversation with our nonprofits last year. Christina did this great job of engaging nonprofits. And the nonprofits all wanted what's called inter-rater, what do you call it?
Reliability.
And my response to them was, so we're gonna train our board, but at the end of the day, each and every one of you will score the application as how you see, what does the word meaningful mean? What's meaningful to me may not be meaningful to Martha, to Robert, to Michael, that is on you, right? That's your responsibility as a board member to decide, what does meaningful mean to me? And then you rate those outcomes based on your definition of meaningful. Right, and where we do the inter-rating reliability is that we, next to Caitlin, now we use a standard deviation. And what standard deviation is supposed to do is to really kind of, you know, you got the extremes and you're always gonna have, I mean, I've had board members score everybody 5s, I've had board members score everybody 1s, right? You know, they don't, and so hopefully the standard deviation will help minimize those extremes, right? And so we use that as part of our formulaic process. Then the other question is, will the data collected demonstrate clients are better off? Again, what are their measurement tools? What are the indicators? Do you believe that the data they're collecting and how they're using it, will that help in your mind, in your experience, does that help clients be better off? Right, so as you're looking at the indicators that the measurement tools are using, you know, we're not asking you to be experts, but we are asking you to be critical thinkers about, hey, you know, in my mind, this outcome or this indicator really doesn't tell me if someone's actually better off, right? And then we can, if you put that in the notes, I will have a conversation with the agency after it all happens. Hey, you know, one of our board members made this comment that they don't think the indicators that you're saying really is the best way to demonstrate the efficacy of your program. And can we think of ways that what you're doing to better demonstrate how successful your programs is being in changing people's lives? In fact, I'm having a training on September 11 with the in-between on logic models, where what I'm doing here with you, I want to go deeper into it with them. We're actually gonna probably create some logic models together. We're gonna look at their programs. But yeah, I'm doing that September 11th because I'm starting to get agencies that are really interested in developing these.
Could we attend that as well, Roberto?
If you want to, I don't want too many of you.
Oh, we still have to record it? Okay, well, you just invite me, okay?
Yeah, but then it becomes a public meeting, and I'm sure that in between staff wants to have those conversations together. So yeah, but I'm happy if 1 or 2 of you wanna come, that's fine.
In my notes, I just wrote.
Exactly, true. Those are your indicators of your outcomes, because we can all say we have great outcomes. Tell me how I know those outcomes are real.
And I wonder, this is kind of like a side note, and I might be going off topic a little bit, but I wonder if we provide less space for them to provide their outcome, if they'll be more straightforward.
Oh, we fought that fight
Lifting them.
and we lost.
Did you?
Yes, Brenda and I fought that fight.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, remember when we had that task force?
Give me the meat.
Yeah, we had that task force and you know, our partners didn't want to reduce the number of characters. But we tried.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, we did try, but again, when you're part of a collaborative, you know, you work collaboratively and sometimes, you know, you get outvoted and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know.
I know how that goes.
I have I guess criticism of of short-term and medium-term outputs.
Okay,
Seems to me that short-term and medium-term outputs are subjective. In the sense that I say I like ice cream, it's vanilla, you say you like it, it's chocolate. We can't, that's just the way it is, it's who we are. I like it more than you like it, but neither one is true or false, it just states an opinion. Now, with the short-term model, the only way you can tell whether or not subjective opinion is better is how long the individual has been doing something to make a decision on something that's a subjective decision. For example, if you haven't done one of these surveys with the company, you have no information behind you to get that gut feeling, whatever you call a subjective thing. Now, he alluded to a couple of objective rules for outputs. One was, do they save money? Because that's measurable. In other words, you can prove or disprove that. Like in a way you can't prove whether chocolate tastes better than vanilla. Another one would be cost per client goes down. That would be an objective, short-term proof, right? Also, you talked about another one, like, do they go make an appointment? This is a objective fact. They either
Right.
made the appointment or didn't.
right,
They either reduced the cost to clients or they didn't. They saved money or they didn't. I'm just saying, there's only very few objective ways to judge short-term and medium-term objectives, outputs. Later on, in long-term outputs, you have a lot more information both from them and from the experience of the interviewer to make a more logical or better judgment. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, that'd be great if we could do long-term outcomes, but again, we don't fund for more than a year, right, at a time, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
If we could fund,
When you're doing 1-year things, which are all short terms, turns out to be not logical, but subjective.
well, I will push back on that, because I disagree, so for example, because I see all these, right, and I have intense conversations with our agencies. I don't think that many, there might be a few that are a little subjective, but for most of our scopes of work in our agreements have quantifiable, objective outcomes. For example, because we just finished one recently with dental aid, right? Because we were struggling to get them in their scope of work, they're gonna do follow-up. So let's say you go into dental aid, you get a service, they're gonna follow up with you and do a follow-up dental screening to determine how effective their work was, and they're doing that in 6 months, right? So that's short term. But that's subjective, right? If you had a cavity, or you took care of the cavity, you come back 6 months, you don't have the cavity anymore, or it stayed sealed or whatever. And so many of our agreements are in that vein of tell me what's gonna change. Now.
Yeah.
The mental health ones, in a sense, are I feel better, but that is still quantifiable, right? So if someone comes to Medicine Horse with depression or PTSD, is because they do better in work, right? And they have an assessment, they have a recognized assessment on that, and after 8 weeks, whatever, how long the program is, they reassess. So in a sense, there is subjectivity there about how you feel, but it's still a valid assessment on how someone's mental health has improved because of the work they're doing. So I push back a little bit on the subjectivity part, because most, if not all, of our scopes of work have some kind of quantifiable measurement, whatever it may be, right? Whether, for example, someone our early education is pretty easy, because most of our early education folks use this thing called TS Gold. And TS Gold, the deals that know about early education, is kind of a statewide accepted student performance measurement assessment, right? And so we will hear from back, 97% of our students demonstrated through TS Gold that they met these certain domains of the TS Gold assessment. Again, that is quantifiable because it's a best practice in the early childhood education realm.
And sometimes the short-term outcomes lead to long-term,
And that's always a goal.
right?
Well, I imagine like some of these like return people too, where they're here year after year after year, you have that track record.
Yeah.
If you use the same assessment anyway.
And sometimes they change and that's fine, because then we set a new baseline, right? Because sometimes there's new assessment that comes out or, your best nonprofits are what I call learning nonprofits. In other words, they are doing the research, they are data focused, they are shifting the way they do things based on what we're learning throughout the country. And so we will see agencies that change an assessment because they learned something new. So.
I like your comments on the healthcare, and mental health care. As I see, I got someone I know now who just went into the doctor, got their diagnosis, they're on 2 different medications. And now they have to take the meds, they want to take one, not the other. So they're taking the other one and we're gonna see what the progress is. But, and you said maybe in eight weeks to find out what the progress is. Well, what was the answer? Well, you didn't take your second med. Or, and another thing that I've seen, someone I know that works at Longs Peak Hospital is that in the ICU, that a lot of, I asked, what's the big problems there? And they said there's a lot of customers coming in with suicidal thoughts. I'm like, why? Because it's the medications they were taking for depression. So these meds that they're taking may help them, but over a period of time, they may be suicidal. So there may need to be a change in those medications again. And it's gonna take some more time to see if those meds work. And if they don't, then change them again. But I know it's a complicated process, but I like your answers, if there's good meaning there and what's progress and do the evaluation, but I know it's a complicated process too.
And I understand, yeah, it is complicated. I mean, you all are seeing applications for complex societal issues. I totally get that. This is not an easy board position. Because you're deciding, the funding for the most part, really great people out there that are doing really good work. But we just don't have the amount of resources to fund everything. And so this is why this is important.
And we read them and we also interview them as
Yes.
well. So the hope is that you would read it before you go to the interview.
And that you're ready.
And I think we discussed too, like, that you folks are gonna try to get some of those applications out sooner.
Yes, we are working on
That
that.
would be helpful to be consistent, be able to really do our research and ask those really good questions
Yeah,
during that time.
exactly.
Could be a little earlier.
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions on the logic?
We went right into the questions.
That's fine. Any other thoughts? And of course, you have this in your packet, so, and if any of you, I love, logic models are my favorite thing. I love thinking about, it's about strategic planning, so thinking about what am I gonna do? And what's gonna change because of what I'm doing? Because the ultimate question is if I can't answer that, should I still be doing it? Right? So,
Could you send this
Can you
to
give
me?
this presentation to the child welfare team?
yeah, oh, you should have it in the packet. It should be in the packet.
In the attachment?
Yeah.
Okay.
The thing that I saw was somebody, they were a drug addict, to fentanyl, and they were in jail, and, they released them on probation. And they're supposed to help themselves, well, they don't care, it doesn't matter. But what they did in the jail is they gave them an injection with medication, I don't know what the name of it is, but it's a gel. And it dissipates over maybe a month or 3 months. So these people don't have to take these amounts of other meds to detox them. So they have that med, but that works because these people don't have to do nothing and they don't. But that med is helping them detox. So, I mean, I don't know long-term effects, I mean, is it gonna, what are the problems gonna be, don't know, but sort of currently short term, that is a good answer. And is that gonna work? And if it does work, it'd be nice to say,
You would
okay,
hope
this
that
is
the
a good answer.
FDA did their research, right? They did the testing and all that before they said, sure, you can
Up to
inject
the rats.
Sure, you can inject that into somebody's body. So you would hope that they would do the pre-work for that, right? To make sure it's safe, but you don't know. Cassie, you had a question or thought?
I was just thinking that some of these things must be really long-term and also like you could measure and then they slide back, right? But that doesn't mean that the program isn't good, it's just, it's a really,
Exactly.
the person has really big problems, right? So I guess like a worry, but I don't think it's really
Well, no,
that we would use, it's easier to pick the easier problems then, right? Because then you can measure, oh yeah, you know what I mean?
well, yeah, and here, I mean, I've been doing human service work for over 20 years.
Mhm.
And in my mind, the key word in human services is humans,
So, yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
as we all know, humans are wonderful, amazing, frustrating, and just not perfect,
Complex.
complex.
That's.
And so we have, there are many times that we, I've worked with families that we took 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back,
Yeah.
and we had to work our way back.
Mhm.
And there are times that people were successful for years
Mhm.
and then they relapsed, right? It's those that work with substance use understand that you just never know.
Yeah.
You try and set people up for success, but you just never know when some triggering event, some situation will lead to a relapse, and you have to be, you have to be aware of that. That doesn't mean that the investment wasn't worth it, right? When you invest in people, doesn't mean it wasn't worth it, it's just the human condition.
When I think too, like when you're grading these applications, it's important for you to really choose an area that you understand.
Yes.
Because like he was saying, like say we're doing something, talking about drug addiction or substance use or clinics that help people in that area. Like if you don't understand the process of relapse and you're looking at this data, you might look at it negatively and be like, no, they're gonna get scored bad. Versus really understanding the full picture and going, okay, this is like a normal thing or a normal trend or process that people go through. So it's important that you pick something that you're familiar with, so that way you can feel confident grading it versus something that's like, I think I want to do childcare, and you haven't had a child for 30 years, and you really don't know the nuances of trying to access childcare and what good quality childcare means in Boulder County and
Or what the rules are
the
now.
rules are and yada yada. So that's just another thing to think.
Any other questions? This will be then, we're looking at some other training on scoring, hopefully in August, so as we get ready. So we'll go over the other parts of the evaluation. I just think this is, in my mind, this is probably the key part of the evaluation that you do. Maybe you also look at like, are they serving the right people and are they doing the right type of outreach? All of those things are important. But in my mind, this right here is the hardest part of what you do, and I think it's also the most important part of what you do. Are the applications, are the nonprofits that we're funding doing something meaningful for Longmont and the people of Longmont?
To remind me, it's first time, so remind me the application deadline. And
Yes. So the application
Categories.
Yes, so the application will be released June 24th, so
Any more than 2.
yeah, Martha knows,
Ambition.
Martha did 4, Martha did 4 categories, and in fact, the next piece that we're gonna talk about, 'cause, is, so these are, so we need to get a vote on this here in a second, but let me get back to the deadlines. So, and Brenda and I went and created a whole thing on Microsoft Teams, a planner. So deadline is release 24th of June, close August 26th.
Press release goes out.
Right,
Whoa.
or
No, it's gone.
Scott moved it, I don't know, our communications team is handling it, that's fine. But I let the communications
At some
team,
point in this one, right?
at some point before we release.
21st. Yeah, 21st, it's gonna be released on that Monday.
Yeah, so,
So I'll send it. Okay. We can
Well,
talk about that later. Let's
yeah.
talk about that later. We're working on
So yeah, that's gonna happen. And then, so we get all the applications by the 26th. Actually, I'm gonna pull out I'm gonna stop sharing this, I'll come back to sharing this in a second. Cause I have this stuff on my on my task list, cause I can tell you all. Cause we worked really hard the other day to get ourselves into a good place.
That's good.
Yeah, it was good. Alright,
Come be a part of your team, it sounds interesting.
it's
You
always.
guys are in the weeds all the time.
Yeah, it's always interesting, so let me go to the list, so let me give you some dates here. So, we get the 26th. By the August 26th is when they're due. By 9/4, Christina and I need to do the pre-screening. Cause there's always agencies that are either just not aligned or they ask for something that we don't fund. So we don't wanna add them to your list to review, right? So we do that.
Thank you.
And we will be done setting up the agency hearings by 9/9. That's September 9th. Okay, and so those will start, so you will get the applications, so before we start. So by the August meeting, we're gonna need you all to have selected. What priority areas do you want? And so you can email Brenda and say, here's what I want. Okay, so you can do it anytime between now and August. So 9/9, hearings are set up, they're gonna start probably, what did we say? Either the 16th or the 23rd. You will have those, if we start the 23rd, you'll have 2 weeks with your selected focus area.
Where's the options at, or you'll send us the options?
Well, I'll talk about the, yeah, we'll talk about the others in a second, but that's the way it's gonna be. We may not have an October meeting unless HCI needs one. Because then we're gonna do, if we start on the 23rd, we'll do the 23rd. We'll probably do 1 a week. Unless if we do 2 a week, we can get done in 3 weeks. If we do 1 a week, it takes 6 weeks. We do 23rd, 30th, week of the 30th, week of the 7th of October. Okay, that's 3.
These are meetings you're talking about?
1, yeah,
Having
here.
backflashes.
Hearings. The 14th, 21st. And 20th, and then we're done. And then I need scores, cause our meeting's the 14th, I need scores. Hopefully, no later than November 8th.
Right.
Okay, so that's 2 weeks after you get done with your hearings. And some of you will be done, if your priority is up first. It'll be 4 weeks after your hearings, right, depending on when your priority area is, so, maybe we'll do, Brenda, we'll keep, as we set up the hearings, the priorities with the least amount of applications we'll do toward the end.
Yeah.
So there'll be less applications that people are reading, and our heavy applications, like, we always get a ton of education, a ton of help. We'll front load those at the beginning, so those will give you more time to read your applications. Okay, cause then we need to vote on. Our vote is November 14th. That is the night that we vote on the recommendations. And then Christina and I. We need to, once you vote, then we work on the council column that goes to council, because I haven't talked to you about this, but. I think we need to figure out, cause I think you need 2 weeks. Right? So we might have to see which one in December works best.
Well, and that's what we had talked about, is that has to go to a regular session, and so it would be Tuesday, the 10th.
Okay,
It would have to be the 10th, because I think there's the council meeting on the 24th is canceled.
okay. That being said, I just so you all know, cause we
10, and then we
In
back
20
out of that.
in 2019, 2020, because of the what was it? There was one year that we actually did it in January, which is not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. We did the council con in January, so.
So November, the week of November 25th, we would need to have
Oh, yeah, I think we can do that.
the council done.
Yes, we can do that. We can do that. So that's it, Brenda and I sat down and timed it all out. It was a lot of work, but and still more work to do. So going back to the areas you get to choose, and let me share my screen one more time. All right. Okay, so these are 6 priority areas, and as Martha said, I would recommend that you only choose 2, right? And I will tell you right now that our heaviest ones are, what did you say, education
Mhm.
and health are our top 2, and then food and nutrition come in like, you know, 3rd, and then self-sufficiency. Unfortunately, even though housing stability, and I'll talk about these numbers in a second, I do need you guys to decide on these numbers. If not tonight, if you wanna make changes, we can do it later, but then housing stability and then safety and justice tends to be kind of last.
So the ones with more applications would go toward the end
No.
of the.
The one with more applications would be up front loaded so that we give board members who choose that more time to read and score.
So instead of, so we would schedule like health and wellness would go September 23rd. So that way the board has until November the 8th at the latest.
Gotcha.
The idea is if you're reading more, let's get you up front. So that gives you more time to read, right? If you're
Who
reading.
likes to read in here?
Yeah, if you're reading less, then we can put you toward the end because it won't be as much of you know, a load to read less.
For me, the things that sounded the same.
Yeah, well, that's the copy and pasting he was talking about.
No, because.
Yeah.
Some of the things I'm just like, I should have read this, like.
Yeah, I'm like,
Did I click the right thing?
Yeah. Okay, so what I need from either tonight or we can bring it back in July is every year, the board votes on the percentages of what the priority, and what this means, it really doesn't mean a lot. And I'm gonna tell you why it doesn't mean a lot.
shifting numbers there.
It doesn't mean a whole lot because the board doesn't control how many applications come for each priority. So I just mentioned that we get a whole lot more of education applications than we do housing stability. So the idea would be if we were in a perfect world and we had $1 million. If we had $1 million and we said we want 25% of that to go to housing stability, then 250,000 would go to housing stability. But the world we live in, we want that 250,000 for housing stability, but we only get $70,000 in applications for housing stability. Right? But we said we want 17%, so $170,000 for education. Well, we get $300,000 in applications for education. But what is important is these numbers set, like I say here, they set the single agency ceiling. So what that means is once we set these percentages, again, going with that $1 million example, how no one in housing stability can ask for more than 50% of $250,000, which would be $125,000. Right? That's where these numbers are important, is that we said, and in my 6 years, we have used agency ceiling limits about 3 or 4 times. So this is why they're important, is that we actually have used agency ceiling limits in the past.
So it's often.
So yeah, that's why, and this is what we chose, these are the numbers that we have chosen the last couple of years. What I would say, as you think about this, is that we are coming up on our, Molly and team have to do what's called a 2024 to 2028 or comp plan, which they're gonna do a human services needs assessment. And so what I would suggest thinking about is we could leave this the same for this year and wait until next year to change as that human services needs assessment comes into play. And
So if we changed it today or for whatever, this before this next funding cycle. Then it would be changed already for next year, is that what you're saying? Or
It
would we be able to change it?
We could
next
change it
year?
again next year. You can,
Okay.
every year you all change it around this time.
Okay,
I just don't wanna change it once applications are out and once we got them. I wanna change it now.
okay. Well, I have a proposal.
Okay,
Well, first I have a question.
yes.
The self-sufficiency and resilience, can you give me an example of like an agency that would fall under that category? Cause it's just like
The RSF,
mentioning, okay. So like your local nonprofits,
yes,
kind of like the art center, the resource centers,
yeah.
okay,
Whereas
Right.
AFA's Atwood is housing stability.
yep, yep. So. Something I'm really noticing, like with the high skyrocketing prices, right, in the community. And wages are not matching that increase, right? Vouchers are not readily available to all the families, and so. Education and skill building is more important than ever, in my opinion. Because that's the only way to increase income, which increases your ability to pay the bills, right? So I would say, I don't know if it really even makes a difference, but I would take the 3 from 13% for food and nutrition, take that 3% and make it an even 20% for skill building and education.
That would be totally fine. If the board is okay with that, that would be totally fine.
And then do
Wait,
10% for
sorry, you repeat
safety.
that?
Oh, Graham has an end up too, so after you get done,
Okay. I was just saying that instead of food and nutrition being at 13, we'll just lower it to 10, like safety and
Oh,
justice.
okay, okay.
And move the other 3% to education and skill building.
Is there anything that like tells us what these are based on from the last vote?
so speak to me a little more about that. What do you mean?
Like
Why
notes or, yeah, like some, like good logic behind why they picked.
They
the
came
last-
out of, yes, they came out of the
Right.
2020 Human Services Needs Assessment, which is on our website.
Okay.
And they're aligned with the pillars, right?
They're all aligned with the pillars, yes, of self-sufficiency.
And self-sufficiency.
Yeah. Graham, oh, hold on, Graham had his hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Alberto. I was just gonna point out what you just said, that these numbers and why they're the way they are came out of that third-party needs assessment report that said, based on our surveys of the communities and various focus groups, this is what we think the need in Longmont looks like overall. And certainly that's changed since then, but I think the city's gonna do another needs assessment here soon that would give us data-based reasons to make adjustments to these allocations. So, yeah, otherwise in my mind, it's kind of just, yeah, I don't know, best guess based on our personal life experience, which may or may not align with the overall city need, across the board. So I'd vote to keep it because it was data-based. It's my 2 cents.
Mike, we had a question?
Yeah, I mean, from my world, what I've seen was, for example, food and nutrition. Someone from the senior center said I think it's 1 out of 10 seniors now need food, 1 out of 13. Okay, they now need food stamps. So, or food support.
Right.
Okay, so that's, I don't know if it's increased or decreased, but that was a comment that the senior center just gave. And then number 2, the education, at least for my world, the mill levies went up 19%. So they're getting a lot more funding than they ever had. So they're getting funding maybe from the state, getting it from mill levies, and then they would say something about, the mill levies went up, then they would get reduction from the state, and then if the mill levies went down, state would get more. But
So the one thing
it's
about
kinda- I don't know what,
It includes early childhood,
Right,
that it's not just, elementary through
yeah,
through college, this focus area includes early childhood. And we know based on kind of what Graham was saying is that there is a deficit in the funding for early childhood that actually has decreased.
yeah. and-
Where the mill levies have increased, there's just a lot of things going on with CCAP, and
Yeah,
CCAP
so you get
freezes.
frozen right
It's
now.
frozen, we're anticipating that that's gonna be frozen until probably November.
Except for the really high need families. So if you know high need families, they can still do that.
But they might be put on a waiting list, like.
I don't know after that, I just knew, I don't know what the process is after they apply.
Yeah. I think the other thing to remember is that this education and skill building thing typically does not go to schools. We rarely
Yeah,
fund the
not
school.
public schools.
What we fund is things like I Have a Dream, we fund early childhood, yeah, we file.
Healthy.
And to your point, we fund, for example, we fund Open Door with this, they're part of it, which is is to learn, not just learn English, but learn academic English, to your point, to get a better.
Jobs, better
Yeah.
wages, increased skill.
So yeah, I just wanna make sure that we're not confusing that this is not for schools,
Okay.
this is for programs that provide education and skill building
That's right.
outside the school system.
Okay.
And the nice thing is with the food and nutrition, my experience last year was a lot of the food and nutrition programs were kind of like the community garden, things like that, but the self-sufficiency and resilience, if those are the resource centers that Aliberto was talking about, those are the local food banks that are in that self-sufficiency and resilience. So they'd also, so if you're thinking, oh, maybe the food's a little bit low, that also, there's also food support within the self-sufficiency and resilience.
So the senior center knows that? I don't know, I mean, I just,
Yeah,
they were
all
complaining.
seniors have access to
Oh, they
like
do
local
that?
food banks.
Okay.
But there is there's a need for food in the community right now. For sure.
It's increasing because of inflation.
Yep.
The real levies went up 19%.
Yep, seniors are on fixed incomes, they don't qualify for SNAP, they don't have money to pay for, so.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure they're protected.
Of course.
So yeah, like I said, so two things, one, I'm fine, you know, if you all wanna, however you all wanna go with, cause in the end. Some other historical things to consider is, again, these numbers are sort of artificial and arbitrary in the sense that.
But you have to.
Like the grants per point, it's just representing what the 2020 human services did. The only difference they do is they really set that agency ceiling. It doesn't say that we are only gonna fund, you know, food and nutrition at 13%. If we get more food and nutrition applications, it might be 16%. You know, but if, for example. What it would do, if you brought food and nutrition down to 10%, right, so this is where it would make a difference. Let's say we move the three, like you said, to education and skill building. And so now we're talking, it's going back to that $1 million example. If food and nutrition goes down to 10%, then let's say somebody like Community Food Share.
Yep.
Asks for let's say they ask for 120,000, they never have, I mean, they typically don't, but let's say they did. They could not get more than 50% of 10%, which would be, you know, 50,000. Or if you keep it at 13, you know, 13% to 130,000, you divide that by 2, well, that's 65,000. Right, so that's where it makes a difference. Now, we get more than $1 million, but I'm just using that to show you, that's where those percentages make differences, is in your high requesters, right? Not say your $15,000 or $20,000 grants, those are hardly ever impacted by this. But you got agencies that are asking for 100,000, 90,000, you know, and then they can get hit by this.
Yeah.
So that's where these are important, because again, we don't control who applies or how much they apply for. So I'm okay with you know, as staff, we'll take your direction, you know, whether we keep it, if we change it, totally fine with that. I'm just explaining how it impacts.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on this? So Crystal wants to move to 3, Brown says keep it, any other thoughts?
So safety and justice,
Safety and justice typically is legal services, like Colorado Legal Services, like
Rocky Mountain.
Legal Services, like but also things like victim advocacy, so Blue Sky Bridge falls into that, yeah. And the only reason Safe Shelter doesn't fall into that, cause I had conversations, is it because their ultimate, what they're asking for is for their housing navigators, their resource navigators. And that's to get DV clients into more permanent and safe housing situations.
So they fall under housing stability.
Yeah, they fall under housing stability. Cause Karen and I had this conversation back and forth with them, it's like, well, we do DV, should we be under safety and justice? But yes, you do that, but ultimately what you're trying to do is get them into a safe place to live,
Yeah,
so.
Would it be less competition in the safety bracket?
If we move
I think they'd be eligible for more money, right, in the housing.
they're eligible for more money in housing stability than they would be.
They have more competition there though.
Not as much, like I said, even though it says 25%, we rarely ever hit that 25%.
Yeah,
I mean, there's just not a lot of folks doing, so it's
which
EPA.
is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's EPA, it's in between,
Yeah.
it's together, it's safe shelter. I mean, I think there's 5 total housing stability folks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There's not a lot.
But they're making big impact.
They are, no question.
That's why that 25% is.
Yeah, it's super important, but there's just not a lot of folks doing housing stability work, right? And so we don't fund vouchers with this housing stability. We fund getting folks into, the case management, the housing navigators, we try and fund.
The positions
I
to
just
help
wanna
that
give-
wraparound.
Yes,
Victims in a protected bubble because they usually have to leave multiple times to get to there.
I understand, and that's what we fund.
We need it.
We fund safe shelter positions, they're case managers to help victims get into safe housing,
Yeah.
so. Any more thoughts?
And mine was just a thought, like I just thought, like I'm just thinking of like. The shift that I'm seeing at the organization that I work with and the people that I'm working with, and there's no saving in the budgets, right? There's no saving. There's no additional resources. There's no moving to a cheaper place. To me, like, I'm like, the only option here is increasing their income. And how do you increase your income? By increasing your skills and education.
Yeah,
And so that's kind of where my thoughts were coming from, but we can keep it as is if everybody wants to.
but again, we are doing a new human services needs assessment,
Yep.
and as part of that, I wanna advocate, so one of the things that we did last time. Is we used you all as a focus group, I don't know if you remember that, Crystal. Maybe you weren't there
No,
yet.
I think I just joined after.
Yeah, but Graham, remember that, we did a focus group with the board. And it was really helpful, so I will advocate for that when we start working with the consultant that gets selected.
Okay.
So. Are we okay with just leaving it for now till we get
Needs assessment.
can we have a motion to that?
Well, we have a meeting for education for planned housing and investment in July. I just want to remind people, I'm going.
Oh, yes,
That's right.
yes, you all are welcome to come, it's gonna be at the
I don't know where it's gonna be held though.
Callahan House. So, but can we get a motion on this part first?
Yes, I motion to approve.
I
Okay,
second.
alright. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright, Graham raised his hand, I saw him on the camera.
Okay.
Alright, that's all we needed from you all, but let's I'll stop sharing. So we have multiple things coming up, ooh, I know, no, but we have multiple things coming up actually, and it's gonna be kind of right back to back. So in July, we do have, because you all asked for a training on affordable housing. And Molly's team's been working with the state to provide us some great trainers. And that's gonna happen at the St. Verrain, just a nice spot. Right down here on Third. It's gonna be a really good training, we're gonna get you all yeah, it's a beautiful.
What training is this one?
This is the one that you all asked for, for the housing training.
The one where we did the survey for?
Yes, that one.
Yeah. I'm
I'm
excited
Or was that
about
just
that.
Alejandro's
What?
idea?
Did you say something about to take us?
To take over.
The brew bus, we'll tell the brew hot to come pick us up.
That's in July. It's on I think, but the other one that we had to move recently, because we're gonna have it June 20th, but we have a time crunch. Is that we're gonna have another nonprofit engagement at the Callahan House.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be it's back to back, July 23rd, but that's gonna be in the morning. For those that are, it's not gonna be in the morning?
It's 2:30,
Okay, so Brenda will send out more information about that,
yes, it's the World Cafe.
yes.
Could we, Brenda, you might already be able to, are already doing this, or you're gonna hate me after I ask you to do this.
Calendar
But is
request.
there like, could you do like just the general like July events happening? So
Sure.
then we receive it and we can mark it down versus like the separate invites that sometimes it's harder for me to like keep track of those, but if I get like, oh, I know my paper's here and I have like, oh, all my dates for July, I think that would be really helpful.
And again, both of those are optional. They're not the board, I mean, really the only thing that we have to be here for is the actual board meeting, but you're just learning opportunities for the board if you wanna engage with
But
nonprofits.
I think that, yeah, we'll have a list.
Yeah, we can do that. And that's all I had.
Are they gonna be hybrid meetings or just in person only?
So the in person, yeah. Yeah, cause Callahan House doesn't have a lot of technology. It was built in 1880, so
Is that the place down there?
it's right over here.
Callahan House.
That's where a lot of people have weddings and like beautiful gardens and
On Third?
Yes.
Okay.
What's it called?
Something matter? Yeah. Okay,
right next to the funeral, Albert Funeral Home.
yeah. I've never been there.
It's gorgeous.
Is it?
It's gorgeous.
I've walked past it. I picked a rose or two on the outside. I
Yeah, it's
probably should have said that publicly.
it's a gorgeous.
You're recorded and everything.
So,
It's okay with last year, they go back.
Okay.
any other announcements or other business?
Thank you guys for putting everything together and doing all the background work.
And for dinner, that was nice.
And for
It was really nice.
Then Robert, I think we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
There we go. All right,
All in favor?
all right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I second.
And we're all in favor.
See you, Graham. Thank you.
Bye, Graham. Bye, Graham.
Hey, you get this.